Hello, everyone. Welcome to Café Muse. I'm Ellen Cole, and I'm co-hosting tonight with Kathy Haley. Thank you, Michael Davis, for the lovely music. And thank you, Henry Crawford, our technical wizard, who's behind the scenes making this Zoom work. Tonight, we have a very special program showcasing the winners of the 2025 Jacklyn Potter Young Poets Competition. Kathy Haley, director of the Jacklyn Potter Young Poets Competition, will introduce the winning poets who will each read some of their poems to you. After that, you'll hear from our featured poet, Michele Evans. We encourage you to buy Michele's book tonight and to keep your eyes open for news of the future success of these talented young poets. Also, I encourage you to donate, if you're able, to Café Muse and support our literary programs. The links for buying Michele's book and for making a donation will be in the chat. Audience members have been muted to help us prevent feedback problems and minimize interruptions. During the reading, please use the chat if you want to comment or ask questions that our readers may answer during the Q&A period, if there's time. Our program is scheduled to last for 1 hour. Be sure to mark your calendar for our next Café Muse reading on Monday, July 6th, featuring poets Greg Luce and Birgie Zent-Hausren. And now, Kathy Haley will introduce you to the annual Jacklyn Potter Young Poets Competition, the winning poets. Kathy teaches at Johns Hopkins in their Master of Writing program. She's an organizer of Prince Williams County in the Company of Laureates and hosts 2 poetry reading series. She's a poet herself, the author of a chapbook, I'd Rather Be a Hyacinth, as well as a photographer and artist, and for many years has graciously orchestrated the team of judges for the Jacklyn Potter Young Poets Competition. Please welcome her and our very talented poets.
Thank you so much, Ellen, for the generous introduction. And thank you, Karen. I'm honored to play a part in keeping the legacy of the Jacklyn Potter Young Poets Competition alive. This has been a fantastic year. Everyone on the judging panel, including final judge Kathy Smaltz, praised the quality of the work. And I'm so impressed with the ways in which these student poets take advantage of the opportunities available to them. Summer programs, literary magazine work, publishing opportunities, and contests. We had 3 rounds of judging this year, with Kathy Smaltz making the final decision. Kathy's poems appear in journals and in her collection, Pieces. She holds an MFA from George Mason University, a VCCA Creative Fellow of both Amherst and Avillard, France. She served as Prince William County, Virginia's Poet Laureate from 2016 to 2018. And is the current vice president of the Northern Region of the Poetry Society of Virginia. Kathy selected 2 winning poets who live and attend school on opposite coasts of the US and who just happen to have the same last name. Of course, we read everything blind, so it was quite a surprise to see that. And I am not sure if Collin and Katie have met before, but they will likely meet this summer because they both will be traveling to Iowa for their Young Writers Studio. I'll start by introducing Collin Kim. Currently a junior at Harvard Westlake High School in Los Angeles, California, Collin is an avid writer, surfer, and violist. He was a 2026 Young Arts winner with distinction in poetry, a 21-time award recipient from the Scholastic Art and Writing Awards, and a 4-time National Silver Medalist. He has been recognized by the Adroit Journal, Pulitzer Center, Jacklyn Potter Young Poets Prize, Poetry Society of Virginia, National Council of Teachers in English, and more. His work appears in the Diode Poetry Journal, Show Poetry Journal, the Louisville Review, West Trade Review, American High School Poets, DePaul's Blue Book, and more. He will attend the Iowa Young Writers Studio this summer and will be a mentee at the Adroit Journal Summer Mentorship, where he also serves as a poetry reader. Collin, please share your poetry.
Hey, awesome. Hi, I'm Colin. Nice to meet you all. Because the H Mart in Plaza Market is closing. After 23 years, because I must walk through the bell song of this store one last time, must walk past displays of dried squid and hanging leather prayers. Because I grip a bottle of banana milk and taste the artificial sweetness of childhood shame. Because the Ajuma's eyes are red-rimmed as gochugaru. Because she folds dollar bills and one into her apron pocket, because I'm ashamed of how I avoided this place for years. The pickled garlic breath of it, K-dramas eternally blaring from the mountain televisions. The uncles who call every young boy or grandson. Because standing in line behind churchwomen to buy salve for Songpyeon, I must rest my palms on this counter worn smooth by 23 years of hands reaching across the vernacular for perfect change. Because the developers wait outside like prairie vultures, blueprints dreaming. Because I take my place among the immigrants and children who look like me. Because I am ashamed of our shared grief. How it pulls in the aisles between the rice wine and Michelle Zahner pilgrims. Because when I pay, I stumble over 감사합니다. Syllables foreign, pebbling my mouth. Because she answers anyway, counts change into my palm with an old country politeness I recognize but never learned to return. Because I'm sorry for the years I pretended not to understand, for how I'd answer in English when she spoke Korean. What a betrayal, my tongue. The ginseng candy she slips into my palm forgives. I'm a question written in two scripts, the one I was born into and the one I chose. Both are incomplete. Tomorrow, the windows will reflect the sky, traffic, anyone but us. Donation Day. Fabric lies in soft mountains for donation across the basketball court, and I remember how wool holds the shape of shoulders long after the shoulders have gone. A woman sorts through children's clothes with an archivist's patience, folding each relinquished shirt into careful squares. If you look at displacement long enough, it begins to resemble something else. Families move through these piles, careful like figures in some choreography. A father holds parkas in summer, feeling for weight that might protect the unprotectable. I dreamed last night that I was the keeper of a house of infinite doors, each one opening into a room like a different season of someone else's life. In the dream, my pockets filled with keys that fit nothing, and ash fell like snow through every threshold until I woke to sirens counting down the hours. The scoreboard still glows from Friday's game, whenever it was, 21 to 14, as if numbers could hold time in place. Here, a girl tries a pair of Crocs that belonged to another girl who who believed in the luxury of tomorrow. And I want to tell her about the morning my house forgot to burn. How luck sounds like sprinklers keeping time against the ash-thick air drunk with smoke. When I leave, the doors exhale me back into the parking lot, ash kicking up at my feet, leaving its signature quietly on the windshields. As I drive, I carry their faces in mine, borrowed like light. The breakwater at Venice Pier. Barnacles crust the sodden bones, storm-beaten as they hold up the walkway, petrified like popcorn, kelp-wrapped and spread around the pilings in emerald spirals, welcoming the docking fishing boats at dawn. Sarah brought our grandfather's ashes in a Folgers coffee can, label handwritten and peeling at the edges. her fingers tight in their grip, white-knuckled around the rim. From jetty rocks, the harbor seals watch the unburdening, whiskers twitching like piano wire as seagulls wheel overhead, razor-beaked garbage trucks with voices endlessly off their hinges. Unscrewed the plastic lid slowly, the dust revealing what becomes of 40 years of Marlboros at the fish cannery. Bone fragments broken like shells, ash pale and fine as powdered chalk. The wind caught him first, swirling into breakwater. Purple clusters of mussels like bruised fingernails where sea anemones pulse, their mouths opening just to shut, their tentacles slicing through the tide pool's cathedral quiet. I held her elbow as she tilted the can, felt the rigging of her body shake in its squall. The Pacific swallowed him in silver gulps, and I watched a cormorant dive where the last of his particles settled, its black wings slicing water, gone, pewter with forgiveness. Now, when I return to this jetty, I taste brine and diesel exhaust, the harbor's master's foghorn calling ships home to safety through morning mist. The fouled shoreline holds the memory of our footprints still, and its seaweed and spray, still echoing. The sound an empty can makes clattering against breakwater stones. Fire season, future tense. You were never supposed to burn like you burned. Down the Pacific coast, through marine layer, canyon winds folding into themselves inward. I learned your microclimate the way some people learn to pray. Eucalyptus, sage, the char black of last decade's scrub still visible once I knew where to look. My neighbor kept her Christmas lights up through January. Red, green, gold, shimmering against a ridgeline going orange. Someone's roof tiles ashing in the street 3 blocks down. Even the coyote that crossed PCH at noon. We're all confused by all this sudden emptiness, this accidentally wild corridor. I wanted to believe in your exceptionalism. Wasn't that the promise of your endless coast? Come west, young man. Come build your glass house among the tinder. Come watering your lawn through drought and call it making it life. I did. We all did. Now our N95 masks pile up on the kitchen counter, the elastics gone soft from days of wearing and thinking about my father's village. I can't help but remember how he said they rebuilt after the war with whatever they could find. Tin, cloth, wreckage. You taught me that beauty and danger could live inside the same body, that mesmerizing sunsets can spill from burn scars, that jacaranda can still bloom from the ash settling on Sunset Boulevard's median. The way I still love you even now, even this, even knowing we'll do this again in 5 years, 10, 2. Someone will plant a sapling where their house once stood. Someone will water it every day for a year, leave the watering pot on the porch to collect dust. Someone will stay or leave or return. Whatever they decide, the poppies will return after the first good rain, optimistic and obscene, covering everything. Yeah, and that's all I have prepared for today. But
Thank you. That's beautiful. And thank you for the beautiful detailed imagery, the sense of place and expression of dual culture in your poems. And now I'll read you the judges' comments. The narrative voice in this poet's work is perceptive, believable, and vulnerable. The use of direct address is what caught my attention. It is expertly integrated in these poems. The cultural references are gorgeous. These made me emotional. Thank you. Let's give Collin a hand. Thank you very much.
yeah, thank you so much.
And now I'll introduce Katie Kim. Katie is a junior attending Deerfield Academy in Deerfield, Massachusetts. Her work has previously appeared in Saranac Review, Little Patuxent Review, Thin Air Magazine, and elsewhere. She is an alumna of the Sewanee Young Writers Conference, the Juniper Institute for Young Writers, and the Adroit Summer Mentorship Program. She is excited to attend the Iowa Young Writers Studio this summer. As well as creative writing, Katie enjoys visual art and playing the oboe. Katie, you're invited to share your poems.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Katie, and it's so nice to meet you all. Incubation Ode. You bounced me between your lifelines like a promise, cradled in a nest of metal and hospital light. A fear you couldn't name bubbling into a blister across your lips. You dreamt me some god you never believed would reward you with my slick and howling body. All splitting lips, static hair, fingertips smudging the clear walls between us. You mouthed words I'd later learn, your fingers printing small clouds across the incubator's sky, colors dusting like the bruises across your legs. Days later, tracing me in the rear view, you drove us home. From outside, the years chirped away, a never-ending song spilling into the night market's baptizing soul. I wanted to swim, so each morning I swam. Life jacket suffocating your arms, I slapped the chlorine. Butterfly, backstroke, breaststroke. I didn't know you were afraid of water, only that you believed I could solve third-grade multiplication tables before first. Your voice tack sharp with certainty. But forgiveness always tasted sweet as the peaches sliced into moons on my desk each afternoon, juice staining the sleeves of my school uniform with joy. I wanted to solve every problem I saw, how science curdled into mud and Dad chose leaving over listening. I never forgot the day you sold your engagement ring, gold speckled with 10 years of dust and silence. Slick and howling with words I'd later learn. With metal in the August heat, hospital light leaving itself like handprints against our skin. With 10 years of sacrifice, I didn't even notice until I held it up to the light. Self-portrait as a firefly. Mom says there are trillions of cells inside you, and each one loves you. I try to believe her, but I blame myself each time I bite my fingernails to blood. Each time the man idles in his neon yellow Prius too long at the corner, his eyes holding questions I can't silence. Meanwhile, spring lizards map my antennae, my tongue's gone sticky in summer's moonless dark. She says, even in dark, the body makes its own light. We are our own moons, peripheral redness constellating the corners of my sight. Even in downpour, inside sun fists drone like rice into the steam of August. Even then, my little moon blinks, keeps blinking, keeps lighting the matchstick of my belly until it softens into sleep. Even as I sleep, the night owls still watch like mothers. Last night, when I curled my body into its crescent of sleep, my mother's words filled my dreamscape's technicolor clouds. Egia, you never the world's favorite girl, but you do know how to glow. Never lose that. Your bedroom door is shut, completely shut. Not even the fists my father drowned in the frozen lake of the doctor's silence could slip through. Is everything okay? Through the wood, I couldn't hear the answer to, will I live? These days, I start each day by peering through the glass window to see whether you're whispering to father, whether the green 50 on the monitor still blinks its firefly pulse. Your head gleams, a skyless moon glowing through the turban that once held your brown ponytails I tied before school, giggling through the wind. I'm old enough to know the transparent tube trailing across your chest may not lift you from the white sheeted bed. It may not twist your doorknob with the same strong grip you once used to lift me when I sailed on your shoulders through the sea of chirping sparrows. their songs overpowered by a family who never stopped talking, long before we chose silence over the question burning our tongues. Now the door stays closed. I press my forehead to the glass, watching my reflection tremble yours. Outside, the June sun hums. Inside, I imagine us lying beneath it, passing cookie dough between us, one spoon, your eyes brushing the tumor in your breast away for just one day. I tell myself it's possible the body is a lantern, that light only shifts from room to room, quieting. Even as yours dims, I keep blinking, keep lighting the matchstick of my belly, waiting to answer you wherever you're led. Survival song for grandfather, Gwangju, 1980. 3 hours, 27 bus stops, 27 breaths caught in a haze of diesel, each brake squealing a change in key. 3 hours by train, warbling past rice paddies, smokestacks bending in the wind. How could you have known where you were heading? A city better known as a police state. Your friends were silenced into myth for doodling Chun's face onto posters. You told your parents it was just a school field trip. No talk of streets rinsed in sirens, no mention of cruisers beating the pavement until it was quiet, and the unknowing sway of your shoulders brushed into the bus aisle. You were only 23, fresh from the service, trekking from the center of Korea to its outskirts. 3 hours, and the sound of explosives hardening from drumbeat into the will to fight. So you fastened your neon orange bandana around your forehead and fought. You fought until it glistened with sweat, bright as the tangerines Grandma carried home from the grocery store. Now, years after your right leg broke mid-sprint, your limp has become the way we know you. We hear you coming, a beloved off-rhythm, a syncopation against the states, against the voices of your friends, 600 more, stolen by tyranny, but your bandana held its color like a cord to the government's ear. You paved the path to democracy, stone by stone, note by note, until the city awakened its survivors with its song. Hangul Abecedarian for Harmony, after Franny Choi. Gone, the smoothness between the syllables of my name. Her fingers unbraid knots from the century she still lives in. A century of hanbok and yacht. Dying legs folded beneath her, she's stubborn as the baskets filled with laundry from Dad's marathon. She sits beside me, close enough to smell my lice shampoo. Most days she asks me, what you eat today? Every day, another photo of panchan on my plate. She worries the vegetables she sends home won't fill me up. Licorice stains the inside of her suitcase black, left over from her trip. I don't leave Korea until Sunday, but she's already mailed letters I'll open when I return. Germs, Harmony says, each time she scrubs my hands with hers, thumbs pressing circles of soap into my palms. In her eyes, I'm still 5 and struggling to reach the faucet. Can I be alone now? I ask once. The words didn't sound like mine, so I typed, I'm sorry, even though she still doesn't know how to check messages. Pausing before I enter the kitchen, I rehearse, 미안해요. I see Harmony smile, placing chopsticks beside noodles she cooked for me. They're still warm. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Absolutely beautiful. Also, a dual cultural experience and beautiful imagery from the natural world, the medical world, and now the judge's comments. From the first line of the first poem, I was drawn in by the poet's voice and their language. The poet created an intimacy between speaker and reader based on the intimacy between the speaker and their you. This trust continued in each poem, the one that followed every bit as beautiful as the one before it, and each building on the others, although they were singly whole as well. The family relationships depicted in these poems are fragile and strong at once, heartrending and hopeful too. I was connected viscerally by the poet's language to the humanity of which we are all a part. This is poetry at its best. Let's give Katie a hand.
Thank you so much, Katie and Collin. Those were gorgeous poems, and I'll remember them. They were very impressive. And Kathy, thank you for introducing and reading us the judges' comments. It was very interesting. This evening, it is my great pleasure to introduce our featured reader, Michele Evans, author of 2 poetry books. Her debut collection, Purl, published by Finishing Line Press in 2025 and nominated for the Maya Angelou Book Award. And her new book, Februaries, published in 2026 by Yellow Arrow Press. Michele is a writer, teacher, and an advisor for Unbound, a high school literary magazine. She's a graduate of Smith College and studied at King's College in London and at the Graduate School of the University of Maryland. Her honors include a Watering Hole Fellowship and teaching consultant for the Northern Virginia Writing Project. She's been nominated for a Pushcart Prize and for Best of the Net. Her work has been published in Artemis Journal, Bellevue Literary Review, Gargoyle Magazine, Welter Magazine, Maryland Literary Review, Sky Island Review, the Mid-Atlantic Review, and elsewhere. She's been published in the Washington Writers Publishing House anthology, Fences. Reviewer Holly Karapetova, I can't pronounce her last name, let me try again. Karapetkova writes, in a time of silencing and censorship, Michele Evans' Februaries speaks loudly, telling the truth about our history and the people who lived it. From Billie Holiday and Harriet Tubman to nameless citizens buried in subsidized pine boxes, Evans' powerful poems celebrate the labor and resistance of our ancestors, keeping their memory alive in spite of the forces that would have us forget. And Kenneth Carroll writes in his blurb, with Februaries, Evans weaves up praise songs and dire warnings with a melody of diverse poetic stylings. Februaries is a treasure that will be a fixture on the shelves of school libraries as lyrical libations and life lessons of the Black literary tradition. I read Februaries recently, and I was moved and impressed. The book is a tribute to 11 years of the National African American Read-In, established by the Black Caucus of the National Council of Teachers of English in 1990 to make literacy a significant part of Black History Month. Februaries is structured with a section for 11 years of the read-in, from 2015 to 2025, with portraits of local African American poets who are luminaries of the DC poetry community, using their words and the words of other Black icons in her poems, with dedications to the individuals she is quoting from and attributions in notes at the end of the book. Michele uses many different poetic forms, including one I wasn't familiar with, the skinny poem, invented by Truth Thomas at Howard University. The research it must have taken to write this book is thorough and impressive. Michele's writing is lyrical, informative, and poignant. I'm delighted to welcome poet Michele Evans.
Wow, what a lovely introduction. I think that's probably the best introduction I've ever heard. Oh my gosh, the research. Ellen, thank you so much. And thank you, Cafe Muse. Um, it's an honor to be here tonight. I've been many times to support my other writer friends, never imagining that I would be reading my work. So it's quite an honor. And congratulations to Katie and Collin. As a high school English teacher and creative writing teacher and Lit Mag advisor, I would be so thrilled to have any one of the poems you shared tonight in our publication. Quite talented, and I look forward to reading more about you in the years to come. I was going to start with Pearl, but Ellen, because you spoke so beautifully about Februaries, I guess I will start with Februaries. I'm going to read a few of the poems from this collection, and I think I will start with the very first one I wrote back in 2015. I have been a teacher now for 24 years, and I have poured my passion and energy into my students and helping them to develop their voices, to grow as readers and writers. And at at time I neglected my own. And so in 2015, I picked up the pen again and I wrote this poem for the very first read-in that we held at our school. It's called Muse, and it is for Maya Angelou. She was the 10th one, the one I added to the original classical mythological Greek nine. She was a civil rights activist, a leading Hollywood actress, a Pulitzer Prize winning presidential inaugurating artist. She was loveliest among goddesses, a heavenly angel, a once muted and caged bird now free, a phenomenal woman, a creative inspiration, a lyrical calliope. You see, before invoking her, I had this problem, and this problem had me. I was unable to see, brooding in a black box, blinded and belittled, badgered and blacklisted. I was unable to hear, drowning in a black sea, deflated and damaged, drained and devalued. I was unable to feel, wrestling in a black hole, weakened and wounded, withered and wronged. I was unable to think, suffocating in a black smoke, stereotyped and smothered, scarred and second guessed. I was unable to speak, muttering in a black tongue, marginalized and muzzled, muted and misunderstood. And I was unable to write, outlining in a black book, obstructed and omitted, oppressed and objectified. But now, when she sings in me and through me, that heavy shroud of ebony and obscurity is miraculously lifted. And those shadows, the dark ones, lurking in my mind and heart, completely vanish. So I can see and hear and feel and think and speak and finally write again. Thank you. So sometimes poetry collections have a titular poem, a poem that's also the same title as the collection. I don't have a poem in this collection called Februaries, but I do have one that mentions the month. It's called Dark and Lovely and Limitless. And it's for another one of my muses, Alice Walker, who turned 82 this year in February. Her story does not begin or end in February. It cannot be celebrated, narrated, appreciated in 28 short days. For her beauty is dark and lovely and limitless. She hails from Purple Mountain's majesty, East African fields, her mother's land, draped in amethyst petals, leaves jaded in velvet, crowns rooted in smoky quartz. She thrives despite being dormant, buried underneath tiny granules, surviving in sediment, parched soil miseries from centuries of neglect. She paints to remain visible in low light, splattered hues ranging from ink to iris, her blackest moments canvassed in iron and indigo, a portrait of her life in bloom. Her story does not begin or end in February. It cannot be celebrated, appreciated, and narrated in 28 short days. For her name is St. Paulia Ionantha, an African violet, whose beauty is dark and lovely and limitless. So I always try to challenge myself to read poems that maybe don't get as much attention. And this is a poem. I'm going to try to show you it on the screen. It's Missing Letters. I don't know if you can see that. And the poem is called Can I Buy a Vowel? And I penned this poem to pay tribute to one of the writers that came to our school that suffers from hearing loss. And she has a line in one of her poems that I use as the epigraph for this poem. The poet's name is Kamisha Jones. And the line from her poem, The Sound Barrier, is, being hard of hearing is kind of like filling in the blanks of a Wheel of Fortune puzzle. In moments like these, fueled by stress, remember to breathe. Strike anxiety, believe in grace, smile, then pretend. Whenever flares reignite, before their presence, smoldering embers, refuse to be extinguished, even when they whisper. So before I head over to the next collection, I thought I would read a skinny. The construction of a skinny is it's an 11-line poem. The first and the 11th line are the same, use the same words. They don't necessarily have to be in the same order. And then lines 2 through 10 are one single word. And lines 2, 6, and 10 are the same word. So it's quite a little puzzle to put together. And there are 11 skinnies in the collection, one for each of the writers who visited my school. So I'm going to read number 6. And number 6 was the year Dr. Joanne Gabin came from James Madison and the Furious Flower Poetry Center. Number 6. Poetry was a way to tell the truth and a tool to change society. Blooming couplets, golden crowns, blooming violets, furious voices, blooming poetry was a way to change society and a tool to tell the truth. Februaries. Okay, I'm switching gears over here to Pearl. We were talking earlier about the Christopher Nolan movie that is set to release in just a little over a month and a half, his remake of The Odyssey. And Pearl is a collection of poems that reimagine the voices of women from Homer's Odyssey, women from American history, and women of today. Imagine a round table, and seated around that table are those figures, and I managed to snag a seat with my journal and pen in hand. I'm going to read Melancholia first, which is of the collection the most personal poem. It's an Ars Poetica that really tries to explain what I'm doing in the collection. Melancholia. I rewrite their stories to avoid sharing my own. Autobiography truths hiding in plain sight behind archetypes, Greek and classical in nature, so different from my heritage and culture, and yet very much the same. I recast their sorrows in stanzas and statues and stones, replacing my reality with illusions, allusions pouring out from a Grecian urn, a cocktail mixture, one part past, two parts present. I reweave their threads, old and new, black and white, cliched and coded, messages lost for years at sea, trapped glass bottles floating freely, but never reaching final destinations. And I rewear their sandals and shackles, donned by female forces from the past and present to navigate my future, never forgetting, always remembering what they looked like. Thank you. This is one of my students' favorites. It's called Athenia. It's a persona poem. Who really needs saving? Him or me? I know it's bad to wish lightning would strike him down, but I am tired of extending an olive branch, especially when it is so not deserved. I mean, is he even capable of loving me like the divine goddess I am? Always the one to clean up the fallout from his foolery. I can see right through him, you know, and know he is not all that high and mighty. Sometimes I just want to stab him with my gel manicured talons, but in the end, I always cave, throwing wisdom out to sea. So I ask again, who really needs saving? Him or me? Checking my time here. Since this is the Jacqueline Potter's poetry competition and I got a chance to hear the winners read, I'm going to read a poem that won a contest before Pearl was published. It won the Alan Squire ASP Bulletin Poetry Prize a little while ago. It's called Anticlea. Two things that might be helpful to know. Anticlea is Odysseus's mother, and in the Odyssey, she dies waiting. She dies of heartbreak, waiting for him to return home from the war. And the other thing that you might want to know is that I wrote this poem in May of 2020, the day after George Floyd was killed and Christian Cooper had trouble birding in New York City. Anticlea. I told him too much of anything is almost always a bad thing. Just because there are too many fish in the sea doesn't mean you should catch one for every day of the week, except Sunday, because one day 6 heads will scoop you up and eat you alive. This is not the moment I've been waiting for. Hades is a mother's hospital waiting room, a dreadful place where restless souls pace, where 20 minutes feels like 20 years waiting for my son's return from birdwatching, jogging, wandering while I sit waiting. Why don't you pick on someone your own size? I moaned, trapped inside one cave's soundproof walls. Bet this lawless monster swears nobody did this, contradicting iPhone witness and millions who heard my baby boy cry, choking out, "Mama, I can't breathe." And I think I'll end with this poem, Musea. If Homer's Odyssey were her museum. Exhibit number 4. At the fore, a statuesque 4-wheeled quarter, bred for rescuing a stony-faced, forsaken queen, hidden behind hell in a wall of cement. Exhibit number 3, a triumvirate libretto, a blackened note, trill and a sigh, winds perched atop stony parchment, cemented arias silenced by their prey. Exhibit number 2, twin pedestals, stone-faced, yellow-eyed, statuesque mountains, cemented and tame, a portico protection from sirs. See the threat of wild animals. Exhibit number 1, a single stone post, rough-hewn, ripened smooth, an oiled trunk, penny-colored, with 20-year-old cemented roots, a gnarly pillow of nightmares. The final exhibit, a songbook, refrains inspired by forgotten pasts and futures, a paper museum of sorts, restoring cemented arias from the rotten timbers of life. Thank you.
Michele, thank you. That was a wonderful reading. Your poems are they're strong and clever and moving. And it was a pleasure to hear you read them. You're also a wonderful reader, very dynamic. Then it was a pleasure. Thank you also, Kathy Haley and Collin and Katie. I loved hearing you read, and I know you'll go far. You've already gone far, judging by your bios. Also, thanks to Karen Allen-Ear and the WordWorks for sponsoring Café Muse, and to Henry for his technical magic. And thank you to my fellow co-hosts, Majda Gama, Claire McGough, Henry Crawford, and Luther Jett for the work that allows this reading series to happen. And most importantly, thanks to all of you, our wonderful audience, for being here. If you want to watch tonight's program again, it will be up on Café Muse's YouTube channel tomorrow, and you can extend your enjoyment by purchasing our featured poets' books. I hope you can join us for the next Café Muse program on Monday, July 6th. Our featured poets will be Greg Luce and Birgie Zenthausern. This will be a hybrid program, broadcast on Zoom and performed live at the Writers Center in Bethesda. Please join us at 7:15 Eastern Time.
Ellen, I think we have time for me to ask one really short question, which will allow them to just have one more thing to say. And I want Katie and Collin to unmute themselves, Michele and Kathy Smalls and Kathy Haley. So the question is, could you name one poet that you love and might take inspiration from? Katie, you're on. Unmute yourself.
Yeah, I'd say I get most of my inspiration from a poet named Franny Choi. Um, I wrote a lot of my poems after her as well as the poem I read for you guys earlier called Hangul Abecedarian for Harmony. And one reason I feel inclined to her work is because she's also Korean and she writes a lot of like Korean appreciative literature and poetry. And a lot of her work focuses on like relationships between her and her family, like her loved ones, especially like her grandmother. And Harmony is grandmother in Korean. And I really just love reading her work about like her family, her like relationships in everyday life, which is a theme that I write a lot about in my poetry. And she also has a poem called Hangul Abecedarian, which is why I wrote it after her. And she, and that one is also about her and her grandmother. So obviously. So, whenever I need inspiration for like any of my works, I tend to look at her work.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Collin, do you have a poet that you love?
Yeah, I mean it's very hard for me to just pin it down on one specific person. Yeah, Franny Choi is great. She's also someone that does inspire a lot of my work. Particularly because she is Korean as well. So I feel like yeah, she is also someone I can relate to. But I guess for me, I think I find most inspiration in my work from actually people my age. I like reading anthologies and works published on websites all the time. Like I go on like the Scholastic art and writing gallery and I like looking at works done by people who are like the same age as me and I like looking through their lens and how they write their works and um, yeah, that's a lot of my inspiration and I'd say recently someone who's really made me think differently about my writing is actually not a writer at all. He's an artist. His name is Tavares Strachan. And I recently went to one of his exhibitions, and a lot of his work has to do with culture and kind of like this duality of like different identities. And he has, it's a very diverse array of work from paintings to sculptures and I'd say a lot of my inspiration actually comes from artwork. I love going to art museums and just taking notes of images that I can just kind of put into my own words and convey to the reader. So I'd say that is kind of more of my process when it comes to coming up with ideas and writing things.
Oh, well, thank you for that. That's really very interesting. Process is always a good question that I like to ask people. So thank you very much. Michele, you can unmute and tell us who, besides Maya Angelou and Alice Walker, do you have another one?
Oh, I have a lot of them, but I think I'll go with one of the earliest. And I didn't mention her, but part of my inspiration for writing Pearl, it did come from Homer's Odyssey, but it also came from the verses of Phyllis Wheatley Peters, who was
Okay.
the first Black enslaved woman to write and get a collection of poetry published in this country. And she has a really interesting story in that she was purchased and named after the ship that brought her to this country. And her owners, the Wheatley family, discovered when she was, very young, that she was brilliant, that she was a genius. And they taught her how to read and write in English. And then she learned Greek and Latin, and she read the Bible and became just this prolific poet. And when she penned these poems and she tried to get them published, because of what she looked like, no one could believe that she actually wrote them. And so 17 merchants, businessmen in Boston had to write a letter testifying that she, in fact, did write these poems. And then she traveled to England to get them published. And my journey to poetry is very different than hers, but I do sometimes, because of the topics that I wrote about in Purl, my connection to the Odyssey, I do get looks like about, well, why are you writing those poems? Or how did you come to be so familiar with the story? And in that way, I kind of feel a little affinity to her. But there are lots of poets that I could name, but I want to give her flowers. So Phyllis Wheatley Peters.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We really have a whole history of wonderful poetry. Kathy, can you unmute yourself, Kathy Schmaltz, and give us a poet that you like as a judge?
Sure, thank you. Well, first of all, I just want to say what an honor it was to judge, and how much I enjoyed reading all the poets' works, and getting to hear you, Collin and Katie, read tonight was a real delight. And getting to hear you read again, Michele. Just I always enjoy hearing you read. I would say, like everybody else, it's hard to pin down one because we love so many poets, but Sharon Olds has been for many years somebody who I look to for inspiration, and she's so raw and honest, that she has always inspired me to be vulnerable in my writing, and I look to her quite often and enjoy reading the metamorphosis of her life through her poems.
Oh, thank you so much, Kathy. And finally, Kathy Haley, can you give us a poet who you pin a lot of your um, expertise to?
Well, I tell you, I have so many favorites, but I thought I'd mention Tom Hunley today because I don't think a lot of people are familiar with the haiku sonnet form. And he's the one that wrote haiku sonnets and inspired me to do so. And my collection, the chapbook, I'd Rather Be a Hyacinth, is a collection of haiku sonnets. So it's a marriage of East and West, a way to, write stanzas that are like haiku, but then, as counterintuitive as it sounds, to use the Shakespearean sonnet rhyme scheme. It's a lot of fun. I challenge you all.
Thank you, Kathy. You're an ultimate teacher, that's for sure. And Ellen, I turn it back to you to say good night, and thank you, Henry, for your work here tonight.
Oh, I'm so glad we did that. It was really interesting, Karen. I've never heard of a haiku sonnet before. I have to look that up and see if I can write one. Anyway, I've already gone through most of my closing, so I'll just finish up by saying, please make sure you're registered on our Café Muse website so you receive information about that July 6th program, which I'm sure will be great. You'll also get the Zoom link that way. So have a wonderful evening, everyone. I'm glad you were here for this terrific night of poetry. And I hope I'll see you soon. Good night.